Hello, James Webb here. This is CinemaWeb. We're now back to our regular scheduled program now that BFON reviews are finally complete. Recently I have changed jobs and moved to a new apartment, and I also caught a cold, which is why there was no episode last week. It's also the reason why this episode is in English. Originally, we planned to do a Korean episode, but that's going to have to be the next one, hopefully. Anyway, let's get on with it. Today's movie is an incredibly rare one. The title is Yogosei Concrete Zume Satsujin Jikan, which translates to the high school girl concrete murder incident. This movie came out in 1995. The director is Katsuya Matsumura, who also directed the All Night Long series. His debut feature was actually All Night Long, and I'm going to go ahead and say that is probably his best movie. I haven't seen all of his movies, but All Night Long, the first one, is the only one that I would come close to calling a good movie. This movie is not good. It's terrible. It's an absolutely horrible movie, which is probably why it is no longer available. It's very hard to find. Previously distributed on VHS. There is no DVD release, was never released in any other country. There are no subtitles. Yeah, it's not easy to track down, but out of morbid curiosity, I had to watch it. So you might have guessed from the title, if you read a lot of true crime stories, that this is based off of a true crime, the infamous concrete schoolgirl case, which is the murder of Junko Furuta, which happened in 1988. Well, 1988 into 1989. It took them a long time to kill her. So the terrible aspect about this is, of course, that it is based on a real case, and it is not tastefully done at all. It is definitely an exploitation film, and it's only 1 hour and 8 minutes, which is a fairly short movie. I believe it was released direct to video. And the most horrifying aspect of everything that I've said is the movie is actually less horrifying than the actual crime. If you're curious about the crime, you can go look that up. There are other true crime YouTubers or podcasts, or it's on Wikipedia. So the movie starts off with the narrator, who is apparently in some kind of abandoned building. It's got kind of an unsolved mysteries type feel to it, although this mystery was solved, so I guess we don't really need that. He talks about the particulars of the case a little bit and about how horrific it is, before finally saying, "Let's get started, guys," which, great, let's do that.
では始めましょうか。
So we get a very long title. Look at the whole thing and its magnificence. And then we get started with the movie. Or do we? We actually begin with the final scene where she is dying and the boys are about to finish her off. And then we go back even further to the beginning of the story. I'm not entirely sure why the movie decided that we needed to see that one scene, and then we're going to go back even further to the actual beginning of the crime, but that's the way they decided to do that. So anyway, they begin by talking about how great Junko was. They talk about her going to school, her part-time job, helping her mom. And then she gets kind of picked out from the crowd by these group of low-level Yakuza thugs. One of the guys drives his motorcycle up next to her and kicks her over, injuring her. And then the leader of the gang, Shinji, shows up to help her. He does kind of help her, but then points out that he's a member of the Yakuza. She's not that interested in him, but he threatens to harm her family and coerces her into a hotel. He also puts gum in her hair. I don't know if that's to cement that he's a bad person early on. I don't know. He also has the most annoying laugh ever. He's incredibly obnoxious. Also, if you ever thought that being in a horrible, bad taste exploitation movie about the long torture and murder of a schoolgirl while playing the villain could possibly harm your career, don't worry. This guy actually became a famous musician later on and is a member of the group YUZU. So, yeah, did not hurt his career. Then he takes her home and then, of course, threatens that he will harm her family if she doesn't do what he says. And then they, of course, decide they need to establish even more that this guy is horrible by showing him beating his mother. And then they show some other illegal activities. But, you know, we already know he's a bad dude. So then, 14 minutes into the movie, she's kept in the room. She's seemingly treated not that badly. But then, 20 minutes into the room is the first rape of the movie. That's right, I said first one. There's a bunch of rape scenes. Not actually any nudity, so good? No, not good. There's nothing good here. Anyway, the narrator points out that the father probably could have stepped in at this point and stopped the whole thing, but the father was too afraid of his son and chickened out. So this continues. 21 minutes in, our first violence happens. She is beaten with brass knuckles. The brother can hear it from the other room, but again does nothing. Also receives condemnation from the narrator. Thanks, narrator. So then they begin to throw lit matches on her, and why am I talking about this movie? Anyway, Shinji, being the complete monster that he is, forces her to call her mom and tell her mom, don't worry, everything is fine. He takes her outside. In this movie, weirdly, he takes her outside a lot. I kind of wondered about that. You know, Japanese isn't my first language, so if they do explain it in the movie and I didn't understand, sorry guys. Anyway, he does take her outside a lot and seems to keep her under control based on threats of violence. I don't know if that lines up with the real case. I feel like she probably was kept inside more, but I don't completely know. So 25 minutes in, we get another rape scene. This one a little more explicit than the last one, and they take photos of her to blackmail her with. Shortly after that, you see that the mother does know about it, and the mother softly tries to convince her to escape, but then her son shows up and she kind of chickens out, which is another time that the narrator issues his condemnation. He says, oh, if only the mother had stepped in. but that doesn't make me feel any better about what is going on. They also take her for a walk outside. She tries to sleep with one of the guys to escape. He's the one who is the most sympathetic towards her, but she still gets caught by Shinji, the worst human on Earth. He slaps her across her face when she tries to call the police. He calls the police back and tells them that it was his little sister playing a joke. So because she tried to escape, next what they do is set her legs on fire. They set her legs on fire to try to prevent her. So next, they set her legs on fire to try to prevent her from escaping in the future. 39 minutes into the movie, we get a rape scene montage, which is a thing that I wish I never had to say and that nobody has ever hoped for. Following that, they make her sing and dance. She's punched in the stomach repeatedly. And finally, at 42 minutes into the movie, she just says, "Just kill me." Then there is a scene where she is tortured with a light bulb. I'm not going to get any more detailed than that. If you really need to know, you can go read the Wikipedia article. 45 minutes in, she is now too weak to make it to the bathroom, so they have her use the bathroom in a milk carton. Yeah. No. 48 minutes in, they lock her outside on the veranda in cold weather, topless. 50 minutes into the movie, they set her hands on fire. I promise this is the last page of my notes. Isn't it? Isn't it? It's the last page of my notes. 51 minutes, the director drums up some sympathy with her dripping blood on a Christmas poster. And now, 54 minutes into the movie, we are back where we started, with the boys deciding to finally finish her off. 56 minutes into the movie, she's finally in the concrete drum. The narrator shows back up and he talks about the real aftermath of the case and the real culprits. I have read about the case before. In fact, reading about the case before is how I discovered this movie and how I went down this horrifying path. So let's go through the details. Of course, Junko died, of course, from her grievous injuries. She was held captive for 44 days. Now, I told you everything that happened in the movie, but that does not include the actual details of the case, in which contains considerably more. They did so much more to this poor girl, and I'm not going to read the list. You can go look it up if you have to know. Junko's mother suffered a mental breakdown. The two cops who did a terrible job of policing were fired from their job and blamed by the community. As for the culprits, let's see. Hiroshi was sentenced to 17 years in prison and then appealed. But the judge thought that his original sentence was too lenient. So actually he appealed and was then upgraded to 20 years, which is the maximum sentence that they issue in Japan below the life sentence. So Minato got 4 to 6 years. And in his case, he was later upgraded to 5 to 9 years after appeals. Watanabe got 3 to 4 years, and after appeals went up to 5 to 7. Curiously, after he was released, he married a Romanian woman. I don't have any more details, I just thought that was an interesting fact. You can't use that fact for anything though, can you? The final guy, Ogura, he got 8 years in prison. After he was released, he thought his girlfriend was cheating on him, and he beat and tortured that man for 4 hours, so he was sent back to prison for another 7 years. Of course, most people believe that these sentences were far too lenient. As for the director, I mentioned at the beginning, his debut movie was All Night Long, which I think is quite an interesting movie. It is actually possible that I review it at a later time. After that, he released this movie. The director continued after making Concrete Schoolgirl. That did not end his career. He made All Night Long 2 and All Night Long 3, the final chapter. And then, just like Friday the 13th, had a final chapter, and then several more movies. He also released All Night Long R, All Night Long Initial O, then a movie called Kirei, and then a movie called Rape. Yeah, the director just released a movie called Rape. And then I believe his most recent movie was All Night Long Anyone Would Have Done, which is the 6th movie in that series. I thought I'd be able to review this movie quickly and then get something out this week, but this was a lot harder than I thought. I don't like talking about this movie. So anyway, that's all I have to say about this terrible, terrible movie. This has been CinemaWeb. Please like and subscribe if you feel like it. If we can manage it, we're going to have the Korean review up next week. If I'm still sick or I get too bogged down with work, then maybe another English language review. No matter what, it's definitely going to be better than this movie. But that's all we've got for today, so adios.